Well, hi guys. Thanks for joining me again. And I guess if there's women involved, hi gals. Thanks for joining. This is Don at resource number 4 Christ at gmail.com. Resource number 4 Christ at gmail.com. Resource for Christ, gmail.com. This is Just Lover. Thoughts on how to not just live in, but glorify God in the middle of an open quote, bad, close quote marriage. I printed out my little session today and my ink went out. So it's going to be a little blurry. I'll have to go to the store and catch it, but I want to get this in before. So there might be a couple of hiccups there. But man, I'm so grateful you guys joined in again today. I want to say, realistically, if you're listening to this, you're probably hurting. And so been there, done that, kind of in the middle of it. But I'm going to say this up front, and I'm not saying it callously. If you're going through pain, God is doing something good. He doesn't waste pain. If you're going through pain, this is a real obvious statement. You need to go through the pain. Don't cheat. Even if you do cheat, God will love and accept you, forgive you. Though we are faithless, he remains faithful, for he cannot deny himself. But at the same time, I'm going to believe you're probably hurting, but I'm really excited about today's gig. I think it's pretty cool. I'm going to entitle it, An Imperfect Marriage is Perfectly Okay. An Imperfect Marriage is Perfectly Okay. And I'm going to start, I think you've seen this in the last couple of streaming things. I'm going to do a quote break at the beginning here. And here's today's quote: marriage. It's not perfect, but God created it for his glory and our good. This is the only opportunity we have to experience it. With God's help, why not make the most of it? My proof text will be Genesis 2:22, 1 Corinthians 13:10, Matthew 22:30, and then Galatians 2:20. Great little verses. So we'll pray real quick, and then we'll jump into it. Jesus, thank you so much for loving us, me and the guys who are listening. And today, we just ask that you would do something supernatural, that you would live your miraculous life through me, with the hope that there might be one thing that you would say through me that could change one of these guys' lives to make it a John 10:10 amazing God life, and that you would have you be their number one passion and love, and as a byproduct, their marriage will get better. So thanks. We love you. We'll talk to you later. Okay, an imperfect marriage is perfectly okay. Here we go. This is going to be a little bit weird initially, but hopefully it'll make sense at the end. I want to talk about performers. Why performers? Because performers need to be perfect. And the same standard that they hold to themselves, they project onto others. Ready? Especially those others that they were expecting to get their sense of okayness from. Most everyone chooses significant others who they believe will complete them, fulfill, satisfy, etc. To the degree that that person was meant to, in your mind, satisfy and fulfill you. If you're a performer, you're going to put unrealistic, unachievable standards on them because you believe if they perform well and do what they're supposed to do, they will complete you. And I'm sorry, but that doesn't work. Jesus is my source. She is a resource. She is a friend that God gave me to make life better here. She's not my little g God or my big G God. She is my friend who God allowed me to marry. God is the one who satisfies and completes. So here we go. Performers. Performers are one of the sick and broken types that we talked about last time. They are the ones who believe they're healthy and everyone else is sick. Now, they may superficially say, hey, they have various sicknesses, but deep down inside, they're going to believe that they have their acts together, at least in certain areas, more than those around them. A performer would be the equivalent of the New Testament Pharisee, such as Simon in Luke chapter 7. He's going to be a guy we're going to pick on here a little bit. I perceive the Pharisees as what we would think of as like modern day pastors. Okay, they were the spiritual leaders of the time. The problem is that they were really bad leaders. Here's one of the problems with performers: they usually look good. Performers have the amazing ability to perform. Not only do they look good, but they also usually do good, at least on the outside, while people are looking. They have this amazing ability to be very difficult to live with behind closed doors with the people they have to live 24/7 with. Why? Because they can't hide who they are in that 24/7 environment, such as marriage. But they have this amazing ability to be winsome and charismatic and really likable on the outside when they can come and go. When they can go, as we're going to see later, when they can go into their shadow life. My proof text for that is Matthew 6:5. Don't be like the hypocrites who love to pray publicly on street corners and in the synagogues where everyone can see them. When Pharisees were where everybody could see them, they had great prayers and they were putting coins in the offering plates, but behind the scenes, they were planning to kill Jesus. Okay, they were giving money to Judas, etc. With a performer, how things look is always more important than how things are. With a performer, how things look is always more important than how things are. Matthew 23:27. What sorrow awaits you teachers of religious law and you Pharisees, hypocrites, for you are like whitewashed tombs, beautiful on the outside, but filled on the inside with dead people's bones and all sorts of impurity. So look really good on the outside, not so much on the inside. That's a performer. Since they look so externally good, they can be really intimidating. They can look good, and many times they're really good at sounding good. They say the right words, they say the right tone. On the outside, they look like God's gift to the Christian world. On the inside, they're, snidely whiplash or whatever kind of bad guy. Luke 7:35. But wisdom is shown to be right by the lives of those who follow it, doing, in the words of that great philosopher George R.R. Martin, words are wind. Words are wind. It's character, conduct, behaviors, actions. Proverbs talks a lot about that. Even a young child is known by his actions. One of the ways they're intimidating is they have a tendency, I hate this, to compare their perceived strengths with the obvious, observable weaknesses of others. A performer will walk into the room and he has the ability to literally judge in the room all the people that don't match up to him. And again, I'm talking to us guys. They have something, and I'm not gonna describe it because it's tons of different things, but they have one or a number of things that they perceive themselves having their acts to go with, and they can walk into the room and they will literally compare bank accounts with everybody immediately. They will compare waistline. They will compare the car they drive. They will compare degrees, whatever. But they'll literally walk in and they will compare. And here it is. If they don't exceed or beat the competition, they won't go talk to those people. They'll stay away from them. Performers, we're going to look at it as performers don't like being in second place. And because they look so good on the outside, they have, at least in their mind, earned the right to identify and point out the faults in others. The sad reality about performers finger pointing is, again, they're usually right. They're usually right to a degree. When Simon, the Pharisee, said she's a sinner in Luke 7:39, he was correct. He was accurate. Yeah, she was a sinner. The only problem is, to see if I can slow this down, he was accurate to a point, but it was a graceless point. He didn't take into account God, grace, forgiveness, and the fact that everybody's imperfect, everybody's a sinner. Jesus, in that passage, like we talked about earlier, he literally said, Simon, in a way, you need to become more like her. She recognizes her sin. You don't. She's been given much, so she's been forgiven much, and she gives much. You don't give anything. Like Simon, performers have a very accurate observation, but really lousy conclusions. Anybody can point. Junior hires are fantastic at pointing out people's faults. That's real easy, but that's not the point. Jesus doesn't point out faults. He is the one who is our advocate. Performers' conclusions always end in law, never grace. Why? Because that's the standard they live by, and they put it on everyone else. Grace doesn't fit the performer's narrative. Ready? Pharisees and performers are allergic to grace. I'm going to say it again. Pharisees and performers are allergic to grace. Like I said earlier, I went to a church recently on Wednesday night, and one of the elders stood up and literally said, grace, grace, grace. Why does everybody keep talking about grace? Like I said, what I wanted to say was, can you tell me how you became a Christian apart from grace? Being an elder and supposedly a teacher, can you tell me how the sanctification process takes place without grace? Like, oh my goodness. Pharisees and performers are allergic to grace. Why? Ready? Because everyone wins when grace is involved. And as we looked at earlier, everyone's sick, everyone's broken, everyone needs grace, but the performer has to be number one. See, the performer has to be the leader. The performer has to be in control. The performer always needs to be right. They can't handle having their weaknesses, sins, mistakes exposed. Can't handle it. It's does not compute. Does not compute. This is the Dale Earnhardt's second place is just the first loser mindset. Performance. Performance. What happened here? Hang on a second. I touched something on my screen. Sorry. Grace, on the other hand, has a very different conclusion. The first shall be last, and the last shall be first. See, that doesn't work. I mean, are you kidding me? Dale Earnhardt, you get first place, you're actually in last place. You come in last place, you're first. Oh my goodness. Really? Performers, Pharisees, the earners, that makes no sense, if you remember that parable. God's rules don't compute with the performer. So here's a little secret about the performer. They can't keep the rules either. Performers make rules, but they can't keep them either. They can keep them while people are looking most of the time. They can't keep them when people aren't looking. That's why they're so difficult to live with 24/7. Jesus in Matthew 23:3 said of the performers of his time, so practice and obey whatever they tell you, but don't follow their example, for they don't practice what they teach. That's a performer. They look like they can because they work so hard while other people are looking. The problem is they can't. And I'm just going to say it up front, nobody can keep the law. Nobody can do it right. The Bible says that all over the place. Galatians, Romans 3 through 5, performers, I talked about, performers have a shadow life. They have a behind-the-scenes life. They look good while the spotlight is on them, but they have an amazing tendency to look for, find, and live in the shadows away from the spotlight. And I am not going to go into certain scenarios, but we all know of certain Christian leaders who were presenting and promoting such and such, and then we find out behind the scenes they were doing such and such. I'm not ripping on them because that's me. I mean, I was a preacher and trying to be a player, Um, even today, I mean, I present one thing and I can't maintain it. Um, it's all of us, but the performer wants to maintain that facade. And as we're going to see later, that's really hard in a marriage. The shadows are where the performer goes in order to do their dirty deeds. They do them, but what they're going to attempt to do is they're going to focus on their good deeds, and hopefully they're going to ignore the bad deeds. If you've ever lived with a performer, you're going to recognize this character trait. Ready? Performers never forgive. Performers don't forgive. Performers are professional resentment keepers. Most of the time, they won't even recognize it. It's just inbred in them. Why? Because they're scorekeepers. They have if you think of tennis or football or whatever, performers have to be number one because number one is control. Number one is I'm in charge. Number one is I'm better than you, so I'm more righteous than you. There it is. One of the reasons they never forgive is because it keeps them in the I'm always right position or the I'm in charge seat. This is a below the relational waterline thing. This is a control thing, which is actually a fear thing, which is actually a shame thing. And so they, second place is just the first loser. Second place is never good enough. Not being in charge, not being perfect is not good enough. You may have done 99.99% of it right, but they're going to look at and accurately identify the 1% that you did wrong. Yeah, it's true, but that's what they're going to do. They will not only accurately identify and point out your fault, but they will keep pointing out that fault whenever that little resentment-filled trump card is needed in order to either win an argument or stay in charge. Any love or forgiveness, let's just focus on forgiveness that they give, will be lent, not given. I lend it to you. And as long as you perform or do what I want, then I will continue to forgive you. But if not, you become disagreeable, difficult, or actually do better at something than me or point out my fault, then I will bring up my resentment-filled trump card and I will remind you of what you did to me in the past. That's a performer. This section, this little live stream today was pretty easy for me to write. The reason is because I'm a performer. I come from a long line of performers, earners, resentment keepers, and non-forgivers. I lived with it my entire life. And we give the love we've been given. You can't give what you don't have, not even to yourself. And we give what we've been given. So I have been struggling with the performance mindset, lifestyle my entire life. I'm 63. I'm going to die a performer. I'm going to say it's only within probably the last 3 years that God's been showing me that I can't perform. I'm completely dependent, and boy, oh boy, is that hard. All these character flaws and more apply to me and my biological family. These characteristics, again, are pretty easy to put on paper. Is all I have to do is look at me and my mindset and type. I mean, that's it. Now, obviously, I'm not proud of this, but again, little by little, God has been using the Bible, various books, my amazing wife, to just kind of show me, hey, I'm a performer. I'm going to say the biggest thing is he's pulled the rug out from underneath me, very lovingly and graciously pulled the rug out from underneath me and just show me that I can't do it. I'm going to be as honest as I can. Me sitting down and writing for the last 6 months, I don't have the ability to do that. These insights, I'm really amazed at. I'm excited about these insights, but they didn't come from me. I'm going to say this even today. Me just sitting here and doing this, I don't have the ability to do this. I'm literally sitting here in complete dependence. I mean, I don't even like look at, I was telling my wife, I kind of look like an old turtle. And then recently I got this like acne zit thing on my nose. I don't even know who says that, but where like this, I'm going, oh, good night. I just recently biked up Pikes Peak a couple of weeks ago, and I started wearing these nose strips. Well, in the process, I clogged. This is way too personal. I clogged my the pores in my nose. Can't get rid of the thing. Okay, yeah. Who likes to be seen in public? I don't even know. There's only maybe one person. My wife will listen to these things, but who likes to go in public with a big old zit on their nose? Okay, there it is. Personally, I'm going. I don't care. I'm going to be obedient. God has told me to do this, and I'm going to do it. However it turns out, I'm going to finish this material and publish every one of them until I'm done, and then I'll wait to see what he says. And I was a performer. I can't perform. So I'm sitting here right now in complete dependence saying, Jesus, thank you for what you're going to do in the lives of the guys who listen to this. Now, where was I? Now, why all the hubbub about performers in a section that was supposed to be about imperfection being perfectly okay? This is where my printer started to go out, so I'll do my best. Because, as we saw in the previous section, performers are massively sick and broken. The problem is they just don't see it. One of the reasons the performer gene, obviously there's not a gene, but I just like how that sounded. One of the reasons the performer gene is so damaging in marriage is because the performer actually believes they're doing God a favor when they're pointing out that little 1% fault. Can I say it again? One of the reasons the performer gene is so damaging in marriage is because the performer actually believes they're doing God a favor. They're doing God's work. They're being obedient to God as they're pointing out that 1% fault. There's a passage or a verse in Proverbs that says, if friends continue to point out faults, they're going to lose the friendship. Well, it's the same thing in marriage. People don't get married to have their faults pointed out. And I'm saying them, pointing to myself. And it's nearly impossible to try to get them to see that they're actually destroying the condemned, in this case, the open quote bad, close quote wife. There's no healing or helping going on here. It's just crushing. Tim Keller gives an example of those who come from a family like mine, constantly arguing and pointing out faults and stuff. And so because they're so used to the conflict, they think they've got a little pea shooter that they're shooting at the beloved or their quote bad wife, pointing out their faults. When in fact, Tim Keller says it's a relational bazooka, and they blow these loved ones out of the water, and all that's left is a pair of smoldering tennis shoes. And that's me. My wife does not like conflict. She is what I call a peace at all cost person. She loves tranquility, peace, and now so do I. That's been so many years where I thought I was doing God's will and, confronting and exposing her faults and really just crushing her. That's one of the main reasons. Again, there's a number of reasons for that title, but just love her. It's not my job to fix her, and it's certainly not my job to point at her faults. It is my job to just love her in God's grace and power. I like this. I don't know if you're going to understand it, but I'm going to throw it out anyway. She, my open quote, bad close quote wife, is figuratively speaking, drying her tears off on Jesus's feet with her hair. And in the performer's eyes, me, I'm literally more focused on how ashamed I am of her and her sin and the scene she's creating by this exposure she's creating, instead of the fact that she has humbled herself, admitted her sin, and is gloriously receiving God's unconditional forgiveness, love, and restoration. Matthew 7:36-38. This is the prostitute who's, wiping her tears off with her hair in Jesus' feet. That literally is my wife who's humbling herself to both me and God And I'm more focused on the way she hurt me or her imperfection than the fact that she's humbled herself in receiving forgiveness. Oh, God, forgive me. Thank you. You know, unbelievable. Yes, whomever the performer is married to is going to have many 1% faults. And in Jesus' name, extending Jesus' grace, Mr. Performer, that's me and you, an imperfect wife in an imperfect marriage is perfectly okay. God's grace covers it. The performer, however, never sees the need for grace and has the ability to extend it. Let me say it again. The performer, however, never sees the need for grace and as a byproduct, never extends it. He literally is saying, what's your problem? Get off your dead hiney and go do it. What's the problem? Eventually what will happen in God's grace, he will pull the rug out if you're a performer, and he will expose the fact that you can't do anything apart from him. What do we have that we have not been given? And that's a really painful process. If you're a performer, you will always perceive yourself as having an open quote, bad, close quote, wife in an open quote, bad, close quote, marriage. Why? Because it can't be your fault. It has to be hers. Look at my time here. Okay. Have to read this. And even if your open quote, bad, close quote, wife is open quote, performing, close quote, pretty well today, her held onto by you perceived flaws and imperfections from her past will continue to be the relational lens you use to taint and tarnish whatever good she may have done or is doing right now. Ouch. Because you're such a performer, your wife literally can be working her little hoofies off to the quick to try to be the best person she can be for God and you. And you are literally it's not even registering because you already have, and so do I, we already have these tainted glasses say she's a loser. She did this and this and this and this, so she could never perform. The cool thing about this is that Jesus said it is finished. So again, even if she's doing her best, it will never measure up, and you will continue to see her as open quote, bad, close quote, as a bad, close quote, wife in an open quote, bad, close quote, marriage. Literally with the performer, she can never win. If you're a performer, your sinful drive to have a perfect marriage is going to suck the life out of your open quote, bad, close quote, wife and your open quote, bad, close quote, marriage. One of the ways to deal with your sin of being a performer is to realize that Jesus' performance for you and your open quote, bad, close quote, wife on the cross was enough. He said it is finished. No more performing. I can rest in the fact what he's done for me, not what I think I have to do for him. If and when you, as the performer, start to rest in, marinate in his amazing love and acceptance of you and all of your imperfection, now you'll be able to pass that on to her. He performed so you and she don't have to. Can I say it again? He performed on the cross. He did everything he needed to do to make me okay with him. Why? Because that's my primary relationship. As I understand that I don't have to perform anymore and I'm perfectly okay with him, then I can pass that on to her. Next, place an altar of God as a sacrifice to him, your sinful need to be perfect. Say something like, God, I place my drive for perfection on your altar, give it up, and accept your free gift of grace and acceptance. Ephesians 2:8-9, Colossians 1:22. We're going to look at that sacrificing thing later. I'm going to run out of time. Next, I will, as a matter of my will, I don't have to have my emotions involved here, pass your love, forgiveness, acceptance on to my open quote, bad, close quote, wife. You may have to do this on a daily, even hourly, even minutely basis in order to get rid of this ugly drive to perform. It's going to pop up. It's going to take years to get rid of. I do not believe that you will be able to get rid of this ungodly drive in your own life and just check out Romans chapter 7 stuff. The stuff I want to do, can't do. The stuff I don't want to do, I keep doing. Oh, wretched man that I am stuff. Thank God because of Jesus Christ, there's no condemnation. Okay, last piece. Here we go. Now to the performer. His wages are not credited as a favor or a gift, but as an obligation, something owed to him. But to the one who does not perform, that is, to the one who does not try to earn his okayness through self-performance, but believes and completely trusts in him who justifies the ungodly, his faith is credited to him as righteousness, right standing with God. Right standing with God. This is a paraphrase of Romans 4:4 and 5, Amplified Bible, italics mine. Ready? An imperfect marriage is perfectly okay. If you're struggling with it, it's probably because you're a performer and you are putting an ungodly, unrealistic expectation on your wife that she has to be something that God never intended her to be. Rest in, rely on the wonderful grace and performance that God did for you on the cross, and then leave her alone. Okay, love you guys. Thanks. Bye.